Great. Well, thanks all, and welcome to our Cohort 2 capstones for our UnifiED school launch program. I'm so happy to have you all here. I see fellows on the call. I see future fellows on the call. I see committee members, host site leaders, our staff here at DCSC, and many partners in the work. So we're grateful to have you here. Thank you for your time and for all of your support over the year. Just as a reminder, as we're getting started, we're chatting into the chat feature, your name, your organization, your pronouns, and what brings you here today. A couple other things that my colleague Dave is going to put into the chat feature for you all to have open as you see fit. First of all, he's chatting the survey. The survey is something that I suggest all, except for committee members, have open and available during this conversation. This is a place where you can provide feedback to the fellows and feedback on the program overall. So please do go ahead and open up that survey now. Dave just chatted it, and use it to provide feedback to us ongoing. For our committee members, including our host site leaders, we're so grateful for all of your work. Please have the capstone rubric open. Download a copy for yourself. You probably already have it downloaded, and use that to provide specific feedback for the fellow that you're supporting. Finally, Dave is going to chat all the decks that we're using today. So the deck that you have in front of you now, but also the decks for Atlas, Unbound, and Dream City. So I'll give everybody a moment to sort of get all the materials that they like to have open, and then we'll jump in. Great. Before we take a look at our agenda for the day, I'd like to go ahead and tell everyone that we are recording this session, and we're going to be able to share it out to our partners in our network via our newsletter next week. So take a look at that. Without further ado, let's get started. So here's how we're going to spend our time today. We're going to spend 5 minutes just sort of getting oriented. Then we're going to kick it over to our fellows. We're going to start with Genevieve at Atlas Public Schools. She'll have 15 minutes to present, and then 5 minutes of Q&A from her committee. We'll do the same for Phillip at Unbound Stockton Community School and Alex with Dream City School. At the end of our time together, we will open the floor for the entire group for our fellows to share some final thanks and appreciation, and for folks on the call to provide any feedback or final thoughts. I do want to mention that our fourth fellow, Brandon Johnson, is not with us today. He's an incredible fellow. He contributed so much to the fellowship this year. His school is the Social Justice School in DC, and they're launching right now. So rather than present capstones with us today, he's working to train his staff, and so he's excused from Capstone. We hope he'll be able to join us at some point during the call. I think that is all for me. So with that, I will turn it over to Sonia.
Thanks, Ashley, and welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you all join us here and look at the incredible work this crop of fellows has produced. I also wanted to give you a brief introduction of the coalition. So we're the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition. Our work is to promote, expand, and support our members. DCSC our mission is to catalyze and support the creation and expansion of high-quality, diverse public charter schools through strategic research, advocacy, membership activities, and outreach. This past year has been challenging for everyone. We can't ignore the fact that we are actually having this capstone virtually versus in person, which would have been ideal, but we have all learned to adapt in the best possible way. Over the course of this past year, as an organization, in addition to supporting our fellows, we also hosted a successful convening in January, which close to 200 participants. We had our first cohort of communities of practice, which produced a toolkit, You Belong Here, which is available on our website. And we also added 10 new members to the coalition. So originally started with 14 founding members a few years ago. Now we're up to 65 member schools and networks, which totals over 190 individual charter schools across 22 states and DC, serving over 70,000 students. So really excited to see the work that our fellows are doing and to welcome them to join the coalition when their schools are launched. So with that, I will turn it back to Ashley.
Great, thanks, Sonia. I just want to share a little bit about the UnifiED program specifically. So we were launched in 2018 with 4 fellows, and I see some of our original fellows are on the call today. Now it's year 3, and we're looking to support a total of 12 fellows over 3 cohorts. That's 12 schools in 11 cities across the United States. Once all of the schools are fully grown, they'll serve over 3,000 students. A critical part of the residency, a critical part of the UnifiED school launch program, the fellowship component, is the residency. And we are really excited about the schools that our fellows have served in as residents. Several of our host site leaders are on the call today, and hopefully we'll get to hear from them in a moment. Our fellows are in schools that are diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and where on average, students score 20 points above the district average. So we're really excited that our fellows are learning from best-in-class schools. I could share more about the fellowship, but I'd rather let you hear about it from some of our former fellows and host site leaders. So let's hear from Dana. UnifiED is a program within the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition. And it's a program intended to launch new, excellent, diverse by design, intentionally integrated public charter schools.
Fellowship is an opportunity to really think deeply about how to solve the problem of segregated schools. Every state has its own local context, but the fellowship really provides an opportunity to think critically with a group of people and a small group of people about the work of creating schools that are integrated intentionally.
Brandon is phenomenal. He brings so much energy and personality and talent and experience to the table. Staff have said that it's been wonderful having him here because his focus on instruction has really allowed them to build their practice and to get better as teachers.
This fellowship has created the conditions for vulnerability to exist. Not only have I been allowed to show up, but I've actually been supported and really pushed to show up as more of myself.
The fellowship is a year-long opportunity to not only meet and understand and see other diverse by design schools across the country, which is super powerful, but it's also a really dedicated time and opportunity to think about what you want as a school leader and build that vision from the ground up. Everything you do inside of a school building, every decision you make, your curriculum, what type of food you're going to serve, all those things have to be put through a sieve that is your core values. And this process of building a school has really helped me to see that all the decisions going through that sieve will serve you.
This fall, I will be opening up a Diverse by Design school. It's called the Social Justice School. And so I'm taking everything literally in real time that I'm learning from these experiences and infusing them into my own personal practice. So I would say that this fellowship gives you the connections, the relationships, as well as the opportunity to see what currently is being done, and then gives you a thought partner to really think about how to bring back some ideas to your local context in order to make the change that, is probably implanted in all of us anyway, in terms of really disrupting some of our segregated school systems.
Great, and with that, I'd love to turn it over to Genevieve from Atlas Public Schools in St. Louis, Missouri. Genevieve's committee members are Christy Huck, who served as our host school site leader from City Garden, Marcus Robinson, and Brad Peterson. We'll have 15 minutes for presentation, and then we'll open it up to the committee members for Q&A.
Ashley, can you?
Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Genevieve Backer, and I'm one of the co-founders of Atlas Public Schools. I'm thrilled to come together and share our vision of Atlas, which is a K-5 elementary school here in St. Louis that will open in fall of 2021. Before we go further, let me introduce myself. Although I'm a native to St. Louis, I began my career in education as a 5th grade classroom teacher in New Orleans. Over the course of 5 years as a teacher, I worked in both a traditional school and a charter school setting, teaching several hundred amazing kids. I went on to earn my master's from Johns Hopkins to further my development in school leadership, and I've also taken on operations roles for nonprofits and have experience leading my own nonprofit. This past year, I completed my residency at City Garden Montessori here in St. Louis, which was an amazing experience. And for the past 18 years in education, I've grown in my conviction that all children, no matter their racial or socioeconomic background, are capable of doing amazing things. Colby Heckendorn is my co-founder. I'm just realizing we're on the wrong side. Is my co-founder. Sorry, here we go. And he has a proven track record as a school leader for 9 years. He'll hold the position as executive director of Atlas. Additionally, Tiris Nance will be the 3rd founding leader of our school as the head of school culture lead. She has experience as a teacher, dean of culture, and is currently the principal of a traditional public school here in St. Louis. Over the course of the past year, we've assembled a strong group of leaders to serve on our board. We are grateful to have such an amazing and passionate group leading our organization. Our board includes a diverse group of expertise and people, with experts in charter school management, nonprofit leadership, law, and business leadership. We are confident that they are a strong governing body who will hold us accountable as a school and ensure Atlas will thrive. For over a year, we've engaged with our community in various ways and have worked to put what we've learned into action. We heard over and over from families that learning should be fun and kids should be excited to go to school each day. On the other hand, we also sense their concern and know how important it is that kids feel safe, both physically and emotionally while they're at school. We also heard from parents how important it is that their child have a strong working relationship with the teachers. They want their child to feel valued and seen as an individual with their own unique gifts and talents that should be celebrated. We heard from families in one way or another that they want their kids to have the skills and habits needed to thrive. Clearly, they want their kids to have a strong academic background, but they also see value in soft skills such as creativity and collaboration and critical thinking. Being able to collaborate is so important, and the vast majority of families we spoke with said that they like their child to attend a school that values diversity, one that encourages kids to learn and respect those across lines of difference. Families are excited about the idea of having more high quality, intentionally diverse schools to choose from. Our conversations with families have been critical in developing our school's mission and the key pillars of our school model. Atlas's mission is to educate the whole child by combining a rigorous academic program with authentic, real-world experiences so that all students thrive in middle school, high school, and beyond. We envision a time when all students in St. Louis have the skills and habits needed to be successful in the 21st century, and where St. Louis is heralded as the model of a flourishing, diverse, and empowered community. We believe that high-quality public schools will be the catalyst for community transformation that will result in a thriving city. Recently, we've heard so many people say, I'm just ready for things to return to normal. This challenging time in our history has exposed so many inequities in our country and especially in our schools. For us, we don't want schools to just return to normal. We need to do and we need to be better for kids. We deeply believe that education is the most powerful tool in breaking down systems of oppression, and we know that schools can be a catalyst for school transformation. At Atlas, we're trying to rethink what's possible. We've used this unique time in history to strengthen the 4 key pillars of our school design, which are highlighted here on this slide. None of these tenets are necessarily innovative or brand new concepts, but when we bring them together intentionally and combined with a rigorous academic program that's grounded in research and proven best practice, we believe we will set each and every one of our students up for success. If you think back to your own experience in elementary school, what most people remember are the field trips. They're not just fun and engaging, but it helps make learning stick. We don't want these types of experiences to be one-offs that happen once or twice a year, but we want them to be seamlessly incorporated into every academic session in a way that's truly connected to what's being taught in class. That's why our school model combines a rigorous academic program with place-based learning opportunities. Place-based learning connects what students are studying in class to authentic experiences in the local community, which makes the learning more relevant, meaningful, and fun for kids. It's a unique way to connect concepts across all subjects and introduce skills and habits we know our kids need. St. Louis is a perfect city for place-based learning. We have an amazing city with unique resources, world-renowned museums and parks, and fantastic people. At Atlas, we see St. Louis as our classroom. To help you conceptualize what I mean by this, I'll give you an example of how this might live in a thematic unit. In our first kindergarten unit, students build their literacy, math, and citizenship skills as they engage in the study of toys and play. Students read both fiction and nonfiction books about toys. They use their math concepts to discuss shapes and sizes found in various toys and explore different perspectives as they discuss their own preferences with classmates. Students will debate what makes a toy, learn about toys throughout history, and get the opportunity to design and build toys of the future. Students will also explore age-appropriate challenges within the community and think through how toys and play can offer creative solutions to help solve some of our city's challenges. This slide shows 4 potential ways we could strategically weave in place-based learning into our toys and play unit. These type of authentic learning experiences are not only fun and engaging, but they help students gain a conceptual understanding of what is being taught. It is also important to us, both as parents and educators, that we create a school community where kids can come together and realize their full potential. We know that every single student has their own unique gifts and areas for growth. That's why Atlas's school model is designed to set each child up for success in a way that celebrates who they are as an individual. We aim to create an intentionally diverse student and staff body, one that not only brings people together across lines of difference, but is committed to making the world more kind and just. We feel the momentum in our local community and across the nation, and we know now is the exact right time for Atlas Public Schools. Atlas's staff and student population will reflect the diversity of our city across race, income, and cultural backgrounds. And our commitment to diversity extends beyond recruitment to our anti-bias, anti-racist approach to curriculum instruction, school-wide practices that promote equity, as well as ongoing professional development for ourselves and our team. At Atlas, our year-round model is broken up into 7 academic sessions, each consisting of approximately 5 weeks of instruction, followed by 2 weeks of an intersession break. During the 5 weeks of instruction, students are exposed to our rigorous curriculum that is infused with these real-world experiences. And then during our intersession break, students have the opportunity to participate in enrichment programs that feature camp-like experiences led by our trusted community partners. These experiences expose kids to unique learning opportunities such as a dance or a science camp that they might not have had otherwise. With our calendar, families don't have to worry about finding childcare when school isn't in session. During the first week of intersession, our teachers get time to reflect on their practice, plan for the next academic session, and work to perfect their craft. During the second week of intersession, teachers are completely off so they can rest and grow stronger for our kids. This continuous cycle of roughly 5 weeks on, followed by 2 weeks of personal and professional growth, helps ensure that teachers at Atlas are always well planned and students receive the quality of instruction they deserve. At Atlas, we've set lofty goals, and we know we need an incredible team of educators to help us reach the high bar of excellence we have set for ourselves and our students. Research tells us that teachers are the most single significant in-school factor in improving student achievement. Unfortunately, far too many of the teachers we've talked to don't feel like they have enough resources or the support or time adequately to prepare for their students. That's why we're committed to providing our staff with an excellent educator experience. Through co-taught classrooms, 2 planned periods a day, one-on-one coaching, 30 days built into our calendar for professional development, and a strong base curriculum that's grounded in research, we're committed to developing our team, giving them the tools they need to be successful, and pushing them to be the best teachers they can be for our kids. We determine success a few different ways at Atlas. We've outlined 12 specific goals in our charter application that will define our success as a high quality charter school. These goals are outlined here on this slide. But with that being said, we also have internal goals for our students. We have defined graduate aims for what it looks like for our students to graduate 5th grade successfully from Atlas. We think that these habits and mindsets are crucial to thriving in the 21st century. I could spend hours talking about the goals on these slides. We spent a long time putting these together, but a few key points I want to highlight is our school climate. We deeply believe that school should be fun, and it is imperative to maintain a positive school culture in order to yield the best possible outcomes for kids. We want each and every kid to be seen, known, and loved, and absolutely love coming to school. And we will do our best to view each child as an individual with unique strengths and areas for growth. We're going to use conscious discipline as our approach to behavior management, which is a proactive approach to discipline. We're currently exploring 3 viable school building options. Although we're open to all schools here in St. Louis, we're specifically working to be located in the area codes of 63108 and 63110. We've chosen this centralized location in St. Louis for 3 primary reasons. One is proximity to community institutions and assets that will help our place-based learning curriculum come alive. Also, this central corridor mirrors the richness and diversity of the city of St. Louis. So we believe we can recruit students from various backgrounds. And lastly, the centralized location has good access to public transportation. We're currently in the process of procuring bids from transportation companies. Although we cannot currently afford transportation for students, we are committed to fundraising and working towards acquiring a bus or paying for 1 bus route for those students who do not have access to transportation to ensure the most equitable school as possible. We've worked hard to engage with the community and test our school design this past year. Last summer, we held a pilot in the form of a summer camp for kindergarten students, which took place on the campus of St. Louis University. Through this pilot, we are able to test several components of our school model and gauge demand from families. We also want to be a resource for families in our city. As a response to the pandemic, we've assembled and shipped 200 remote learning kits to families of preschoolers in St. Louis. Because of the demand, we're planning on sending out 400 more at-home learning kits by this September. To promote equity, we have prioritized families most in need to receive the at-home learning kits. Additionally, we just finished a second pilot with 29 families, which tests our assumptions to reimagine the homework experience with thematic kits for each academic session in place of traditional homework. As I mentioned, our plan is to launch a K-5 elementary school. We'll launch next fall of 2021, serving kids just in kindergarten and 1st grade, 3 kindergarten classes and 2 1st grade classes. We will be fully grown as an elementary school by year 6 with 468 students. As a diverse by design school, we are strategizing ways to be intentional about our recruitment to ensure a diverse student body, both racially and socioeconomically. In a weird way, the pandemic has almost jump-started our recruitment process through creating these at-home learning kits, as well as these deeper engagement with 29 families with this month's pilot. We actually have over 280 eligible children for our 1st year of operation in our database because of these experiences. We're currently working with one of our board members who has background in student recruitment and admissions to help us strategize moving forward with our recruitment this fall. Because of the generosity of the Opportunity Trust and New Schools Venture Fund, Atlas will be sustainable off of public funds in addition to these grants for years 1 and 2. We will be fully sustainable off of public funds by year 3 of operation. And as a response to budget cuts that our state is facing, we have also developed an austerity budget with 5 and 10% cut in funding. So this past year, we focused on developing our school plan in partnership with the community. Last month, we became sponsored by the Missouri Public Charter School Commission, and we are on track to be authorized by the state by September this year. Once we gain authorization from the state, our focus will shift to solidifying a facility, hiring our staff, and enrolling families. We think the timing is perfect for Atlas's launch as we work to reimagine what is possible for kids in our city. The fellowship with the Diverse Charter School Coalition has been so significant to our growth and development as leaders as we work to launch a Diverse by Design school. The residency, the coaching, and the opportunity to work alongside others who are also launching Diverse by Design schools has been an exceptional opportunity for us, and we are forever grateful for that. Our approach to creating the most equitable school possible has been at the forefront of our minds, with extra push from the Diverse Charter School Coalition. From creating a school model that is equitable, that has equitable recruitment strategies, A-bar work, a unique calendar that provides more opportunities for kids, and co-taught classrooms with normalized interventions, we believe that we are truly creating an equitable school. Thank you for taking time to listen to our presentation, and I'm just so excited for the potential of Atlas and what it will mean for our kids here in St. Louis.
Thank you, Genevieve. Really appreciate your time. I see Phillip clapping. Thank you. We can give folks, give Genevieve a clap as you like. What I'd love to do now is turn it over to Genevieve's committee for 5 minutes of Q&A.
Well, I guess I'll jump in. This is Christy Heck from City Garden Montessori. It's been a real treat to have Genevieve with us over this past year, and I'm really, really excited about their plan. It's exciting to see how the vision has evolved and all the details have begun to be fleshed out. I guess I would love to hear, Genevieve, just a little bit more about what the preparation of the adult looks like, both in terms of leadership team and teachers, and even the board of directors, and particularly with the focus on equity and anti-bias, anti-racism.
Sure, great question. I'll start with our board. Our board is going to start formal meetings after we're authorized, so this September. We plan on holding a retreat, and equity will be at the forefront of those conversations. And additionally, when we were looking for our board, we had various conversations and questions to ensure that they truly had the same mindset as we did for creating the most equitable school as possible. As far as our staff goes, we plan on doing, we have 30 days of onboarding. Year one, we have additional days for professional development. We plan on engaging in something like Crossroads or some other overcoming racism, some other training by an outside provider. But something that's really unique to our model is the fact that we have this 6 week to stop and reflect. And so I think those open, honest conversations to continue our growth, being anti-racist educators, will be a really strong part of our model. Instead of going 14 weeks full speed ahead, we have time to stop and reflect. Okay, let's go back to our mission. Let's go back to our vision. How are we truly doing what we're saying we're going to do?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Hi,
Christy.
Genevieve.
Anything from Marcus or Brad?
Yeah, this is Brad. I just had a quick question. I worked most closely with Genevieve and Colby and one of their fellowships with 4.0 schools. And Genevieve, I was just wondering if you might share a little bit. I know you were involved in a lot of different fellowships and partnerships. Maybe what would you say would be one or two additional highlights that you haven't shared yet about this particular fellowship in regards to the formation of Atlas and how it shaped that?
Sure. I think something that was, aside from the team, it was very, very beneficial to be working alongside other school leaders kind of in a similar boat. and be thought partners. But additionally, going on school visits, specifically to schools that are diverse by design, and kind of learning best practices or things like this isn't working for us or these are our challenges, and really talking to school leaders and having like those open, honest conversations, because this work is hard. It was super, super beneficial.
Cool. Thanks.
Other folks?
Hey, Genevieve, it's Amy Huffman. We talked a while ago. I was curious about the calendar, the 5 weeks on, 2 weeks off. It sounds like really appealing for a lot of reasons, but curious what you heard from parents, how they, was that attractive? Was that something, my child's yelling in the background. But sorry. Yeah, was it attractive? Was that manageable? And did that have any implications for like the budget and the economic model?
Yeah, good question. So overall, it's very attractive to families. The 2 weeks of the intersession break is not required of families to opt into. It's going to be on a sliding scale. We have, I think, 7 confirmed community partners trying to get to the lowest cost possible. That is something that's not going to be able to come out of our school budget, but it will be on a sliding scale. So those families who cannot afford it will still be able to opt in. It also, we've aligned it with the St. Louis Public Schools calendar. So we're still getting our winter break and Christmas break and spring break or Thanksgiving break around the same time as St. Louis Public Schools. There's also a 3-week summer that's completely off for educators and families. But a lot of families we talked to just said like summer is really hard. Even if you do have the means, it's hard to get your kids into lots of camps. But we also know summer, that's where the biggest summer learning loss is happening. And so how can we start bridging those gaps? But kids need experiences outside of the classroom that's going to form them. We're really focused on developing the whole child. So we need them to have experiences in some like a swim or dance camp or a science camp and things like that. So we're excited about it. It might not be for everyone, but there's one other middle school here in St. Louis that just launched with the same calendar. So we're actually adopting that calendar. We see ourselves as almost a feeder for families. They'll grow into a high school. And so far it's gone well.
Thanks, folks. We will have some time at the end of our time together to open the floor to additional questions. So Genevieve, thank you for your time and thank you for your presentation. What I'd love to do now is I'm going to actually switch it up just a little bit. Rather than going to Unbound Stockton Community School and Phillip, I'm actually going to go ahead and let us hear from Alex at Dream City School. We're just trying to accommodate a bunch of different schedules here, so thanks for your flexibility, folks. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex at Dream City School in Washington, D.C. Alex's committee members are Hillary Derelick, who is his host site leader at E.L. Haynes, Derek Johnson, and Eric Colazzo.
Thanks so much, Ashley. If you can just unshare your screen, then I'll share mine. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm really excited to talk today about Dream City School, which is a diverse by design pre-K to 12 school in Washington, D.C. I did want to name up front that our school, Dream City, very much remains a dream. In contrast to Genevieve, who's already on path to be authorized in September, our school and our team hasn't yet started the charter authorization process, and we remain in development. So with that said, I'm really excited to jump into the school model and really excited to hear your feedback. So we have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to jump right in with our case for change in our school's mission statement, and then move onward from there. So I first want to begin by saying that we were generously supported by the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition and the City Bridge Foundation this year in Washington, D.C., who really prompted us to think about how to gain empathy, insights, and data from people across the city. So this year, our team has had over 30 structured conversations with students, families, and educators to talk about why schools really need to change and how they might change. You're probably not surprised, but the biggest thing we heard from students, grades pre-K to 12, is that school is boring. And that is something that we take extremely seriously at Dream City Schools and see it as a true stain on the education in the United States in the 21st century. Essentially, schools have largely become places where students just learn to answer questions that they never asked in the first place. And to us, although all students experience this, it's our most marginalized students who experience this most acutely. We find that unacceptable. Second thing we find unacceptable is that in a city like DC, with its tremendous resources and diversity, schools fail to build diverse networks. Even though schools are supposed to prepare students for the world, 99% of school happens in a single school building in a hyper-localized neighborhood that is often not diverse, certainly within the DC context. And we think if we want to disrupt intergenerational inequity, we actually have to disrupt the patterns of association that we see within our city. And we think school can be a vehicle to make that happen. Third and finally, we've heard from a lot of people that they are highly uncertain about the future. This is mostly coming from parents. They want school to prepare their children for the future, and yet schools are stuck preparing kids for the present or really even the past. These are three things that we are deeply committed to changing, and Dream City is our vehicle to make that change. The next part of our case for change has to do with our diverse by design model. DC is a relatively diverse city, and yet our schools are tremendously segregated. One of the most interesting facets of this year for me was talking to students as young as 3 and 4 years old about racial identity and noticing how early students became acutely aware of the fact that a lot of students who looked a certain way went to some type of school, students who looked a certain type of way went to another type of school. So even though DC has the opportunity for integrated education, most campuses are not taking advantage of that, given laws in the city's charter lottery process, which I'll describe more in a bit. So that's another part of our case for change. Third and finally, although Washington, DC has a robust charter sector, out of the 8 wards in the city, we've noticed that there's a paucity of charter schools in Ward 2, has the fewest charter schools and campuses in the city. This is unsurprising because as you can see in the map, that's located right downtown around the national museums and monuments, but is precisely because of the density of those types of museums and monuments and metro access that we hope to be located in Ward 2. And again, I'll talk more about that in a moment. So next, to share our mission. The mission of Dream City School is to support students in identifying their dreams and then equipping them with skills to pursue those dreams throughout life. As I mentioned earlier, we believe that it's our diversity across race, socioeconomic status, home language, and passions that make us unique as individuals. And so this is the driving motivation for our school. It's to help students find out what they care about so they won't be so bored in school and find ways for school to become a vehicle for them to accumulate skills to pursue their vision and their dreams. I'm now going to transition to talking briefly about our founding team and board plan. So I'm Alex. I will be the executive director of Dream City Schools. I have taught pre-K all the way through 12th grade, and I have a PhD in child development. And I spent the last year as an administrator at E.L. Haynes Public Charter School, which is a wonderful diverse by design school in Washington, D.C. And I'm currently working at the LEA level within that school. Next, the principal, my good friend Dexter Corto, who served as a school leader in the DSST network in Denver, also lives in Washington, D.C., currently as an education consultant. Finally, Nina Safane, another good friend of mine, who is the founding executive director of the Girls Athletic Leadership School in Denver. She led that school for 10 years. And is very excited about the prospect of jumping into a new school design within Washington, D.C. That's our founding team, and we've had a wonderful year working together. As I mentioned, we're a bit earlier on in our process, and so we do not yet have an identified set of board members. Although we don't have a board, we have identified board roles. I won't review those now, but I do want to say that we're aware of our needs and we're ready to take our next steps forward to secure those board members. Thirdly, I want to talk about our school culture, which includes our graduate aims and our theory of change. So we've identified 4 graduate aims that we want to focus on cultivating within our students from pre-K to 12. As I said, our first goal is curiosity. We want students to be aware of their dreams and be as good at asking questions as they are answering them. Next, we want students to focus on community and feel a sense of belonging at school. Third, we want students to develop concrete skills and knowledge that are going to ready them for the rigor of the world. Fourth and finally, courage. We want students to take the things that they have learned and be able to apply them in the real world, not after school, not in college, but when they are as young as elementary school students. The relationship between those 4 graduate aims is visually represented here in a bit of a logic model, where first students identify curiosities, they think about something they're interested in, they build skills around those curiosities toward competence, they then build community with others who share some of their curiosity, and then finally they courageously employ their skills to apply that learning to the real world. The City Bridge Foundation helped us develop a fully built out theory of change and the way that we'll drive toward each of those 4 outputs with some hyper-specific inputs. I won't go into this now, but this is available for review if you would like to dig more deeply into it. Next, I want to talk about our DEI commitment, which we will pursue through a few key design elements. So I'm going to talk about 4 key design elements for our school, but they're all rooted in a DEI commitment. So I want to talk about each one in turn. Our first one is extensive engagement with Washington, D.C. I love what Genevieve said about how the most meaningful part of our education is often field trips. To us at Dream City, we want to think about place-based learning, but we want to bring experts into our school. We want to have our students leaving school and going on field trips and having extensive and sequential internship opportunities in high school, volunteer opportunities in middle school. We want students to be leaving the school building pretty often. We say, as of now, once every 2 weeks, we want our students outside the school building engaging with the community. The way this connects with our DEI commitment is, again, many students in DC haven't had access to the incredible resources that the city has. We believe that Washington, DC is the world's best classroom, hands down. Free museums, free monuments, a world-class public transportation system, sometimes, not other times, but sometimes. And we want students to be able to take advantage of that and connect with experts throughout the city to build their own connections and associations with people across the city. So that is a big focus of our school and will be something that we think will drive our students' dreams forward. In order to make time for that, our second design element is the application of Google's 20% rule, where they famously allow their employees to have 20% of time to independently pursue projects. We find this to be critical, that students themselves will have time to imagine and pursue personal projects. When students say school is boring, one of the things that they mean is that school is autonomy crushing. It asks students to go from class to class without ever asking what the student might be interested in or how to apply those interests within an academic context. We believe that by allowing students to take charge of one part of their school day and plan independently pursued projects, we think that students will be more engaged with school and will see school as a place that is inclusive of their identities and their interests. In the way that that connects to DEI is that schools currently have an extremely singular definition of what success means for students. And if you don't fit that, then you are not good enough in the eyes of a school. And we think that is wrong. We think that school should be a place where the way that you think and the way that you operate shows up in some form at the school and is celebrated as a part of your individuality and ability. Thirdly, in connection with the previous two, we believe that all students should have a longitudinal IEP that follows them all the way from pre-K through 12th grade that would outline the students' interests, skills, and learning styles. Right now, obviously identified students with special educational needs have IEPs, but we believe that all students could benefit by indicating what are their interests and what are their learning styles, and be able to pass that information along to their teachers so that teachers could be aware of the uniquenesses of each child. And the student could start to build a sense of his or her own skills and interests and how they interact with school. So we believe that this would be a very powerful tool in supporting all students. Fourth and finally, we believe that recent research has very much demonstrated the power of knowledge-rich curricula. So much of education has become focused on skills, and while we understand the impetus for that, recent research, especially coming out of Washington, D.C. schools, such as from Natalie Wexler, has indicated that it is actually knowledge, not just skills, that is a true key to reading. That ties back to our first design principle about getting out of school. It is much easier to read a book about a river when you can actually visit the Anacostia River or the Potomac River. And that is part of what we plan to do, both in our curriculum work and in our experiential work outside of the classroom. As we move toward the end, I'm going to talk a bit about enrollment, financial support, and a bit about our growth plan. So, as I said, we're committed to ensuring diverse enrollment. We aim to open with 100 students in pre-K 3, and then grow by one grade of 100 students each year. We plan to use Salesforce to track our representative outreach and how to ensure that the demographics of our school and our lottery population are matching the demographics of the city. We're also aware that DC may hopefully have a weighted lottery soon, and that we could take advantage of that to ensure that the most marginalized students in the city are able to access what we believe will be a world-class education. As far as our growth plan, we aim to start, as I said, with a pre-K 3 program and build by 100 students a year. Our elementary school will build through 4th grade and will be full capacity in year 7 with 700 students. Our middle school would then pick up grades 5 through 8, and we'd be full capacity in year 11 with 1,100 students. And finally, our high school, grades 9 through 12, would be at full capacity by year 15 with 1,500 students. So that is our aim for growth. And as I said, our current supporters, I'll start with the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition, has been an amazing partner in providing us with world-class resources about anti-racist education and what it means to build an excellent Diverse by Design school. City Bridge Foundation has been an unwavering partner in developing our school model and our theory of change and graduate aims, also helping us to think through piloting so that our school can be tested before it is fully developed. And finally, E.L. Haynes, my current home that I love so much, has helped connect me with all types of leaders from around the city and experiences that I simply couldn't have imagined having at any other school. And so I'm incredibly grateful to our current supporters, and also wanted to name that we are looking for future support from New Schools Venture Fund, Camelback Ventures, and 4.0 schools. So that is our plan for the future in developing our vision toward opening. Finally, to close, just to talk about a couple next steps. I know that Genevieve, their team has built out an unbelievable fiscal plan, and they will be financially sustainable off public funds by year 3. We are in the very preliminary phases of building out things such as fiscal plans, but again, we're much earlier stage in our development, so we don't have those yet. As I mentioned earlier, our board development remains early stage as well because of our timeline, but we have identified several people within DC that we think could be great board members. We're starting to look nationally as well. Finally, we believe that continued community engagement is the key to opening a successful school. Although we've had over 30 structured interviews with people this year, we have had so many more countless conversations with people across the city this year. And we know that that is the key to providing education that people actually want, rather than just building a new school that matches our own preferences. So that to us is a huge priority moving forward. So I'll close by just again, thanking everyone so much for being here, sending a special shout out to Ashley and the GCSC team for their support this year. And then my committee with Hillary, Derek, and Eric, I can't thank you all enough for being here. I'm excited to hear your feedback. So with that, I'll close and ask for questions.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. Give Alex a round of applause on the cameras. Thanks, y'all. I see that. Let's open it up for Q&A from Alex's committee. Hillary, Derek, and Eric.
Hey, Alex, what's up, man? Got a quick question for you. Just like want to pick your brain on the, like, I'm definitely loving the idea of like tapping into students' dreams and like the idea that we have to do our best as school leaders to make sure that we're not like facilitating this wheelhouse of us making school boring. So one of the things I want to ask is, how are you planning on facilitating that from a young age of pre-K3, where students identify their dreams, and how do you see them then engaging with curriculum so that it highlights those dreams that they're sharing with you?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Eric. So I think that one of the things that we observed is that there are a lot of high school programs around the city. I'm going to start with high school that think about how to connect students with internships and how to basically get them to identify their interests. And students haven't had any practice within schools for that for their last 10 years. So all of a sudden we're just asking them like, oh yeah, what do you care about? Like, go do this great project. And students, of course, have not exercised that muscle for most of their academic experience. So to us, to backward plan from that graduate aim, we thought it was critical to start with elementary school and as early as pre-K, when students do already identify a lot of curiosities. And I'll say that we're currently thinking about two possibilities. One is there's already a preschool, elementary school in Washington, D.C. called iDream Academy that has set aside dream time for students as young as 4 years old, where students start the process of thinking about their interests and how to live them out on a daily basis. And so I'm in touch with that founder and think about that as a potential structure. And then the other is my PhD was about self-directed learning in early childhood contexts. And I'm especially interested in programs around Montessori, expeditionary learning, and the type of self-directed skills that come from that engagement. So if students had an uninterrupted work block, such as Montessori has in elementary school, we believe that would cultivate the skill of them being able to identify curiosities and learn to pursue them with others. So those are two of the frameworks we're working on right now. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Alex.
Hi, Alex. This is Derek. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. My question for you is, as you are designing a school, as a white male with privilege, with a background that has a good amount of social capital, I want you to talk a little bit about how you and your team during this planning process are seeding power as you incubate and as you engage communities. And an additional question to that is, how do you imagine doing that same work that you're doing right now with your leadership team as you onboard board members and staff members in the future?
Yes, yes. I can name early that that for the board question and the leadership team question, haven't thought about that as much yet, but I do want to say to everyone on the call, Derek, who's been my City Bridge coach, has been an incredible partner in talking about this question throughout the year. And I think one of the things that comes to mind is the emphasis on continuing to gather empathy data from the most marginalized families. And often when we design schools, this is from Caroline Hill's Equity by Design work, we're often designing for sort of the average student. And the Equity by Design framework really emphasizes how to design for the most marginalized student, knowing that whatever solutions work for the most marginalized will then also work and flourish for the rest of the school population. And so to get a bit more specific on Derek's question, I think the first point is continuing to conduct empathy interviews with families across DC to center their voices and their preferences for a school rather than our vision for the school as some static entity. And I think the second piece, Derek, that comes to my mind, and I hope that you and I talk about this for years to come, is what are the right ways to run pilots in ways that test really precise hypotheses about how things are working for students, and how to collect data on uncommon success metrics about whether we are actually engaging in anti-racist education. And I think that we don't have great measurement tools around those yet, but my hope is that through our incubation work, we can engage in piloting that centers the voice of families and collect meaningful data about how they feel a sense of belonging and empowerment and liberation from our school model. Thanks, Derek.
We have time for one more, so I wanted to see if Hillary, who I think is still on the call, has a question.
Yes, I do. Hi, Alex. Just want to publicly, with your fellowship colleagues and everyone on the call, just thank you for all of your work at E.L. Haynes this year. Alex has added so much value, and we've learned from the questions and the the design elements he's working on for Dream City School are also, I believe, helping to push our own work as a community now. And thrilled that Alex will stay with us to keep doing that work. My two questions, I don't know if we'll get to both of them today, but the first is, I just really appreciated the spaces throughout the presentation where you talked about what students are saying and how you are centering students' voices in your thinking about this new school, and also I hope what we can do to keep improving students' experiences here at Haynes. So I would just love to hear a little bit more about what they shared about, what some of these ideas and what changed the most and you're thinking about the school based on the feedback that you heard and the conversations you had with students.
Yeah, I think that some of the things that we heard from students, so again, Hillary runs an amazing pre-K to 12 school. And I was a pre-K teacher as well first, and pre-K kids often love school, and early elementary kids love school. And I think one of the amazing features that I've observed throughout my educational experience is that as students get older, their locus of control in their academic experience actually decreases dramatically. And that younger elementary students have centers time, and they have a lot of flexibility in how they engage with that time. And it's almost like pre-K and graduate school are the two ends of that spectrum where you have a lot of freedom, and then everything in between is more rigid. And so I think, to answer your question, Hillary, when I talked to pre-K students this year and early elementary, there was a lot of joy in the school building. And I think that as students got older, some of the things that we heard were that we often assume that students don't have well-developed interests because they're maybe too young to know what they're really interested in. But I think the more I talk to students and I say, what are you interested in? Their first comment might be something like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber, or something that sounds goofy. But if you push and keep asking questions, I was amazed that within a few more prods, students will tell you that they're interested in flying planes and geriatric nursing, and maybe they may not say, but they say, oh, I take care of my grandma and I love that, and that's something that I'm interested in. And I'm just amazed that kids are animated by the energy of their interests, but school is not a place for them to explore that interest. And that was something that just came up over and over and over again in those interviews, and I would say is the crux of what our school team is trying to address when we found school. Thanks, Hillary.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate your time. You did a great job. I'd love now to to turn it over to Phillip from Unbound Stockton Community School in Stockton, California. Phillip's committee members are Sue Park, who served as his host school site leader from UMing, Nathania Cha, and Tony Salina.
Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. I'm so humbled and excited to be sharing my reflections of my time in the UnifiED Fellowship, on top of really introducing you to Unbound Stockton Community School, which, we truly believe is not just a school, but a solution for transforming diverse communities all across the country. So it's such a privilege for me to be able to share that today. This transformation will start in my hometown, the place I grew up and went to school, which is Stockton, California, which, just for context, this year was named America's most diverse city. Stockton is the 13th largest city in California and 63rd largest in the nation. And I would name originally inhabited by people of the Yokuts and Miwok tribe. It sits at the intersection of agriculture and urban development, being located in the Central Valley of California, but also right outside the Bay Area. And I believe these conditions reflect major aspects of cities all across the United States. But just like any major city, Stockton is diverse, but incredibly divided. And Stockton is a microcosm of what we now see in this country in terms of political diversity, religious diversity, cultural, all forms of diversity. But our residents have been historically siloed and separated, divided by race and socioeconomic class, through a history of redlining and separation that our communities have yet to rectify and heal from today. We see this vast inequity within our city due to these historical practices, including in the 4 school districts that Stockton has, representing very different parts of Stockton and demographics in which our students attend. Ultimately, I believe when our children attend de facto segregated schools, they are more likely to lead segregated lives. I believe these artificial boundaries exacerbate inequity seen no more clearer in these school systems, where student outcomes in our Stockton's 4 school districts are so heavily predicted by race and socioeconomic status. Which brings us to the Unbound Stockton team, and we are a coalition of educators, community leaders, organizers who exemplify the power of diversity when coming together. Particularly as people from Stockton and working in Stockton, we represent the diversity of backgrounds and experiences of our community. And this includes myself. Introducing myself, my name is Phillip Hon, he, him, his, and I grew up in a diverse Stockton, and I attended schools with people who actually looked different than me and had widely different experiences, but because our classes were tracked, social activities often fell along lines of race or socioeconomic status, my school failed to not only embrace diversity, but failed to meet the potential of it. And like many others before and after me, I had to leave the city to learn about my community and to actually learn how to learn with and from people different than me. It was actually from these experiences that I decided to become an educator who would then return to Stockton to see the promise of our diversity truly realized. The other members of our board and co-founder represent leaders in K-12, higher education, realtors, individuals as part of the business community, as well as nonprofits. We continue to look to fill gaps as it relates to our board, particularly in areas of legal expertise and accounting. But this is what we believe and why Unbound Stockton Community School will exist in the heart of downtown, drawing students from all neighborhoods, backgrounds, school districts to come and learn together and meet our vision of being unbound. And that is our vision, to be unbound, which is a diverse community actively learning and engaging across lines of difference. And how we get there is our mission, where we work to understand ourselves and our role in the community. We develop the skills and experiences that allow us to choose how to unpack and undo the systems that have divided us. And by learning together, unlock the potential of the Unbound Stockton community. But we believe that this is not a school, but a solution, because we believe the students and families who choose this intentionally integrated 4th grade school will be the same students who will use their knowledge and experiences to undo the systems and policies that divide our community. Our students will be the change makers. They'll be the catalyst for an Unbound Stockton. And that is why our school needs to be committed to 3 things. First is an integrated community, that safe and inclusive space for all our diverse student population. The second is an enduring success, because we know learning inspires curiosity and deeper thinking, and we want this to carry forward with students through the rest of their lives. Finally, we're also committed to collective liberation, where students will use their education to create a shared future, where they not only define their own lives, but help define a shared community. And this plays out in every intentional choice in our school program. Our integrated community means being fully inclusive classrooms where students of all backgrounds see themselves represented in the curriculum, where students with disabilities and English language learners have access to engage with the same rigorous learning opportunities. And these small inclusive cohorts show that everyone has something to teach each other. Additionally, to ensure such a strong and collaborative culture, students participate in 40 minutes of active engagement every single day, which constructed around Teaching Tolerance's social justice standards, where students will not only learn more about their own identity, but how to work in diverse teams. Ensuring success for us means providing opportunities for student choice and exploration. We will utilize project-based learning as a medium for providing the experiences and thinking processes that students will always remember and connect to, similar to this idea of field trips and being actively involved. But by teaching students to think in an interdisciplinary and real-world way, their writing, debating, experimenting, and problem solving feels much more authentic to their real-world lives. We also recognize the reality of serving a diverse student population, that they will come to us with all different strengths and areas of growth for learning, which is why we also have a daily affinity learning block, because we also know the value of students learning in affinity-like spaces. We will use data to help us develop learning groups that will occur in 8-week cycles, where groups of students will learn about their academic needs and be able to create and advocate for a plan for meeting their shared goals and objectives. And finally, collective liberation represents how we see our students apply the knowledge and skills and mindsets from the things they learn on a daily basis. This happens through students' weekly community engagement, where our students work together to apply their learning with a community partner to prove that they have already the capacity to make an influence and impact on their community. For example, a student's project-based unit may ask students to read about the history of voting rights, write an expository piece on how voter suppression has evolved over time, analyze demographic voting trends in our current city, before finally spending time in our diverse community helping register new voters to reduce voter disenfranchisement. By being located downtown, we put ourselves proximate to dozens of nonprofits, city hall, community gardens, and unlimited number of partners who will demonstrate to students that our community is just as much our classroom. Ultimately, through the progression and development of 5 years at Unbound Stockton, students will have had the experiences to engage at intellectual academic levels, become culturally competent in cross-cultural collaboration, and in impacting the community that every single year we will see the growth and development in their annual Capstone defenses. Our students will leave Unbound Stockton having both the academic skills, knowledge, and experiences to create coalitions for change in which they, when they return to their neighborhood high schools, show that students do not have to go to college or leave Stockton first in order to start creating change. Given such a robust program, our staffing model likewise reflects particular attention to providing both the academic program as well as the school community and culture even in our first year. In our first year, we plan to recruit 50 fourth graders and 50 fifth graders from diverse communities all across Stockton. We plan to utilize a slow growth model to intentionally build our culture and systems. And by adding 100 students each year, we plan to be fully built out in 6 years with a total of 500 students. Through intentional recruitment efforts in communities all across Stockton, and by implementing weighted lottery systems, we create long-term structures to support our intentionally diverse student population. Additionally, our centrally located location is important to ensuring equity of access to our school by all communities. Oops, sorry. During my DCSC fellowship year, we've seen this theory of change catch much attention and support, allowing us to bring in over $150,000 in the course of a year from the likes of 4.0 Schools, Camelback Ventures, New Schools Venture Fund, and High Tech High's Design Fellowship. But we also acknowledge we continue to have gaps in funding that we still need to cover, including community engagement, marketing, back office costs, curriculum development. But in the meantime, we have partnered with EdTech to create our 5-year budget plan with the hopes that local and national philanthropy will help us launch our ambitious model to the point where we see ourselves self-sufficient on public dollars by year 3. In the past year, during this fellowship, we've also worked to learn with and from the community, and that has been of paramount importance, where we've had over 100 conversations with community members, students, parents, nonprofit leaders, elected officials. We not only ask them about their hopes and ambitions for both their children and Stockton as a city, but also getting feedback on our model and design. We also worked to pilot our pilot program that diverse students across Stockton would engage and learn from each other and the community. But while our pilot was postponed due to COVID-19, our camp registration demonstrated the desire of 25 signups over racially and ethnically diverse students, representing 15 different elementary schools, 3 different school districts that were about 50% free and reduced lunch and 50% not. In the midst of continued shelter-in-place orders, our team has been delivering creation kits of activities and school supplies to families, as well as creating Stockton-based curriculum accessible for upper elementary age students to learn more about their hometown. In the next year, we hope to hit our milestones for charter approval, school incubation, and launch by 2021 or 2022. Given that time frame, we have yet to hire anyone or have anyone work on this full-time yet. And we do need the support in finding people who can continue supporting our research and planning, marketing, legal work, nonprofit work, as well as people who will end up supporting our incubation process for curriculum development, program design, facilities, and startups costs. Overall, this year has been incredibly impactful to be part of the Diverse Charter School Coalition UnifiED Fellowship. Aside from refining our school model with our community and making the mental transition from being solely an educator to an executive director. I'm appreciative of the excellent school visits to the likes of Community Roots, Citizens of the World, Success Academy, City Garden, to really learn and understand the different yet beautiful contributions of other intentionally integrated schools to our education movement. But I'm just truly appreciative to be part of such a powerful network in which I've seen schools find their ways to expand their impact, like learning their practices like Valor's Compass Model or Summit Public Schools Learning Platform. But at Unbound Stockton, we likewise see our impact in showing schools how to design rigorous community experiences and active engagement, where students who don't just learn SEL, but also learn about difference and division as a means of coming together. I'm also incredibly thankful for my UnifiED cohort as a network of silly individuals who decide to choose and embark on these journeys, but they have been great to learn from, brainstorm with. And then finally, I'd like to thank a huge shout out to my host site, UMing Charter School. That's a nationally blue ribbon school on a daily basis that reminds me what is possible for students. It showed me what it means to continue to deepen one's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion as a school, and finally learn from a staff and a head of schools to be deeply committed to not only their vision, but continue to work in supporting me and the school like Unbound Stockton Community School. With this, I'd like to thank you all for your continued impact and support in this collective movement. I hope to continue our work in partnership and call on your support for not only the authorizing and launch of our transformational school that I think is something that can be for not only America's most diverse city, but one that can be an example of addressing the inequities and segregation all across this country and help meet the true potential of our diverse future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. We'll give a round of applause on our cameras. Thanks, Philip. At this point, we will turn it over to Q&A from Philip's committee members. That's Sue Park, who served as his host school site leader at UMing, Nathania Cha, and Tony Salina.
I'd love to kick off by just celebrating you, Philip. I cannot believe just this incredible plan that you shared. I remember when this was just a vision and really amazing ideas that you gathered, and now I see this really excellent, thoughtful, detailed plan and how you're going to execute on that vision. And just recognize the contribution you made to UMing and just publicly that we learned just so much from you and what you brought, and really deepened our model and practices while you were with us. So thank you so much, Phillip. My question for you is, it was really powerful when you spoke of Stockton being the most diverse city in America, yet still the reality of the historical entrenched segregation. And I love how your model is tackling that, you know, very courageously, and it sounds like it's so needed as a model for many of our cities. I was just wondering, as you were doing your pilot and your 100 conversations, what were the aspects and features of Unbound Stockton that resonated the most with your different target populations? Like how do you think you're going to approach really recruiting, attracting, and retaining this diverse population of students and families?
Yeah, so I think that's such an important conversation and thing to think about, especially as I've learned from diverse by design schools. The demographics of a school can continuously shift, and how you center this idea of diverse by design or intentionally integrated as the focus. And so I think one big piece is to ensure that piece of the vision lives out in all these conversations. And I think that's actually something that many families and students have been their experiences. They know their schools are diverse, but that's not the actual kind of experiences that they're getting from growing up and living in Stockton. And I think that's been such a desire that people can name this narrative that Stockton is diverse, but wanting something more from it. And I think that's a big piece that certain individuals are looking for in our conversations. But it's also acknowledging that just to do kind of diversity and this programming isn't enough if you aren't grounding this also in equity of education and academic experiences. And there are some families who are going to want to come to this school for that portion of it. But it's also investing them in the conversations of how this idea of academics sits in this larger picture of equity and what it means to raise all our students in our city. I think one of the most salient conversations that also stood out, it was actually a conversation about the naming of our school and whether this resonates. There was a student who actually ended up saying, it doesn't matter what the school is named, or it doesn't matter kind of what these particular like fun, unique features are. Like, as long as it's a good school, I want to go there. And I think that really resonates at the heart of like how we need to keep our vision and our mission for equity in line, so that all students will feel embraced and included in this diverse by design school.
If I could go next, almost verbatim as Sue had the question I did, but I did have a little iteration on that I'm still curious about. So kind of launching off of that, it sounds like you shared pieces that really kind of affirmed your vision. I'm wondering if there's any community learnings that made you realize there was an iteration you had to make, or there's like a place where you needed to put more thought or resources in order to really serve the community and be this type of larger solution.
Yeah, I think the biggest area of kind of learning and growth is developing an understanding of the context of Stockton, the context of California. I'm, the first to admit I spent large part of my career in education out of state, and I'm kind of returning to the city and community. And it has to really acknowledge that people have been doing the work for social justice, educational equity, understanding what it means to uplift communities long before I was even born here. And so I think a big part is understanding and collaborating with those partners, understanding kind of the push for ethnic studies in the community, understanding the push for restorative practices. And I think those are the constant conversations our team needs to engage in to ensure that those voices and those desires are a part of this school model. And I think there are broader conversations, even in the context of California, about charter schools and the political climate. I think something that is important for us, and why we, and in seeing, many diverse by design models have kind of their niche, and they kind of share that with what they do, that it's so important that we collaborate with our district schools and share what we learn about diversity, equity, inclusion, and how to enhance those practices. So I think that's why it's also important. Our school is rooted in this really theory of 4 through 8 that our students will go back to, traditional home districts or other charter schools. And we need to see success and equity all across the system, and that we cannot work in silo. I think ultimately that is the thing that I've been learning and thinking about the most is how these conversations need to bring everyone to the table. And that's really what, intentionally integrated means. It's not just this idea in the school, but the system and city as a whole.
Folks, we have time for one more question for Phillip.
Yeah, if I can. Hey, this is Tony Felino with Wisconsin Public Schools. I'm just so privileged to be here on the call. Such a fan of Phillip's, and we've had many theoretical conversations along the way. So I agree, seeing this come to fruition now is incredibly exciting. I too am a native Stocktonian. That's actually a word, I promise. I'm one of the people that's probably been in Stockton school since before Phillip was born, and he and his ideas are absolutely needed in our community. I think this plugging into what is a young, vitalized leadership with Michael Tubbs and others is exactly where we need folks like Phillip to be. And I think he preemptively answered my question was going to be, California politics has turned blatantly anti-charter in terms of legislation and authorizer law. And then similarly, Stockton Unified, who had been a pocket of Stockton hope around, allowing schools of choice and some innovation to happen, has recently closed in terms of the way they're approaching charter authorization and their stance on schools of choice. So we'd just love to hear a little bit more detail on, I want to see this school open. We need this school to open. What plans or ideas do you have, Phillip, beyond just trying to be a beacon of success? Because I think you're going to hit a barrier before you can even be a proof point. So how do you manage or think about managing that problem?
I think what strikes me is ensuring that we see ourselves as part of the community and continuing that conversation. When I think about the kind of political difficulties between charters and district schools, I think we all need to see ourselves under one shared umbrella and continue to bring each other to the table. And I think that is kind of the lens of the conversation that needs to happen to ensure that we are sharing resources and open to supporting each other. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions of that work that we're all doing. And I think this is actually the perfect example of modeling what this school will be for kids, how to have conversations with people who disagree with you, how to bring your experiences and your background to the table and work to come up with solutions together. So I think as a school leader, as an executive director, this is truly the test of how to truly model the work of the school by living that out every single day. And I think the realities of the political situation is true. And so it is going to require the resilient effort of our team and really the community to call out why this is so important. And I think that is why so much of the conversation, so much of what we talk about the school is really grounded in the city of Stockton, the community, and undoing these systems and these policies. And I think that's something that through conversation, we will all get behind. But I'm also naming this is coming from the sense of someone who's incredibly visionary and optimistic. But I believe if this is the vision of our school, this is the vision of what we need to apply in how we create this.
Thanks, Phillip. Thanks to everybody for being on the call today. It has really been I just want to just share a quick shout out to our fellows. It has been a true pleasure to work with y'all this year. I'm so excited and inspired by the vision of the schools that you just presented to us today. So congratulations, great work. It's been a true pleasure. And thank you to our supporters, to our partners on the call, to our committee members, and in particular, our host school site leaders who have spent so much time over the last year coaching and mentoring our fellows. We're very, very grateful for your time and your expertise. At this point, we have about 5 minutes left, so I'd love to open it up for any burning questions or, in particular, words of wisdom for our fellows as they move ahead in launching their new schools.
I'll share. Thank you so much, Ashley, for allowing me to be here. This is Sook. I met most of you all in New York when we were visiting some schools. We were doing the Excellent School Visit earlier this year before our World kind of changed, but it is so amazing to be able to see the amount of growth that you've had even since then with your school models and your visions. And you can see I remember us having a very deep conversation about what you take and what you leave and what you use to push back on from things that you see even in excellent school visits. And I can see that really clearly in your presentations. So kudos to you all. But I guess my words of wisdom is like, as hard as this year is going to be, next year's probably going to be even tougher. So gear up but don't, no matter how hard the wind feels, don't let your tree fall down, and stay really strong and rooted in your communities. And I can't wait to come visit your schools on our excellent school visits 3 years from now.
Thanks, Suk. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share some quick advice to you all. I would say these 3 presentations were just the highlight of my month. This has been a very difficult time for us all, and it is important to allow moments like this, moments of joy where we see what promise is still there for kids and communities and families. So thank you. I just encourage you to use this time as an opportunity to show how your innovations can actually rebuild and reinvigorate communities post-COVID. This is the time where we can truly reimagine what's possible for kids and communities altogether. And I'm not saying to capitalize on the movement for Black lives or the challenges due to COVID, but what I'm saying is like double down on your why. And double down on the community engagement that you are doing, so that when we are able to reemerge from these crises, that you are the leaders that the communities are willing to follow.
Thanks for that, Derek. Unless anyone has any other burning questions or words of advice, I'd love to actually just end with the fellows and let them share a moment of thanks for all the time and energy that everyone put into supporting them this year.
I think for me, this is Phillip. Again, it's reiterating the importance of kind of these values and, why we are in this coalition and space together. It's about, expanding opportunity and access to educational equity, but it's also thinking about what it means to live and share in an integrated society and world. And I think these are the kinds of conversations reflective of the diverse people on this call, reflective of the things that we're doing for with our communities that we're all coming from. And I think I'm just so privileged that this was a year of so much learning and building partnership that I feel thankful to be a part of this coalition and to continue extending the work alongside you guys in the future.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that by echoing something I just heard Derek say about doubling down on your why and doubling down on the community. And to me, so much of this year and support from the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition has been about exploring our why and about our own identities and how that intersects with the community around us and how to be an effective leader. And as Derek said, someone who seeds power within a community. And not to lead a school for, but to lead a school with. And I think that has been a through line in all of our work this year, and something that's really inspired me and makes me excited to be a part of the coalition for a long time.
I think they both just hit the nail on the head there, kind of took my words, but I just really appreciate the Diverse Charter School Coalition, and I'm just very thankful to be a part of this organization, but also feel incredibly grateful that when we zoom out of my context, that there's a broader movement in creating truly integrated, equitable schools, and we just got to keep on pushing forward, make things happen.
Thanks, everybody. With that, we'll close out. Again, grateful for all of your time, your expertise, and all of your feedback here. This recording will be shareable, so please look for it in our newsletter next week. Thanks everybody and have a great day.
Thank you everyone. Great job, Ashley. Great job, team. Great job, fellows.